First off, we're going to be talking about building plugins and widgets for FigJam. We're bringing the power of our open platform to FigJam. Now, previously, we had extensibility via plugins with Figma, but now we're opening this up to FigJam, and we're not only doing it with just plugins, we're doing it with plugins and widgets, which Bersabel will talk about later. You're going to be able to build plugins and widgets for everyone to use and help make the product better for collaboration with others and for in your communities. We're opening up our platform and we're going to enable anyone in the Figma community to build the features for the use cases that you need. This means that you don't have to be on a specific plan to create widgets or to create plugins. You don't have to be on a pro plan or an org plan. You can be on the starter plan, you can be on the free plan, and that's totally fine. FigJam is aiming to be the most powerful and approachable whiteboarding platform. It's the most flexible. FigJam is the only whiteboarding platform where you can actually build custom widgets, and this is super exciting for us. It's open to everyone. Like I said, regardless of plan, you can build plugins and widgets. It's also easy to get started. If you know simple HTML and JavaScript, and you can build a plugin. And if you're familiar with React, you can build a widget. For all my designers in the room, I would just say, let's say you have a great plugin or widget idea. You can always try to pair up with a developer to help implement your ideas. We're hoping that all of this extensibility with plugins and widgets can help you jam with your team and community your way. So you can power up your jams by automating workflows, connecting tools, and boosting collaboration. You can pick and choose what works for you so your jams have everything you need and nothing you don't. Also, one that I'm personally excited about is just having room for play. So rediscover the joy of jamming together with games, encounters, and things to help bring the group together. And lastly, it's for everyone. So you may have noticed when working in Figma, it's a little bit difficult for non-designers to use the tool. There's a lot of technological things going on under the hood. But FigJam is easy to use, it's approachable, and it's simple. So this is going to extend all of those plugins and widgets to everyone. So people outside of product designers, but it could be engineering, research, project managers, just for fun and connection if you want to play some games with your team. All right, so let's get started and talk about plugins. And right after this, we're going to be having the amazing demos. I would definitely say that's the best thing to wait for, but let's just talk about FigJam plugins. So FigJam plugins can help you do a few things. One is we can automate work with plugins. Plugins are best for making individual workflows more efficient. Plugins can make it faster to customize styles, organize stickies, or import data. The same plugin can work in FigJam and Figma, so you don't actually have to publish two different plugins. And on the right, we see an amazing plugin built for FigJam that you can just put in your visual sitemap here via text and actually generate a sitemap here. Now I'm going to let Mirko talk about this a bit more, but let's move on to the next type of plugin here. We can use plugins for organization and synthesis. So we can actually extract data on the screen. So you may have noticed in your jam sessions, when you're putting in cool ideas and you're putting in all kinds of stickies to vote on those, how do we know which one is actually doing the best? Do we just manually count? Well, Alex, who's on the stream with us, has created this amazing plugin called Stamp Counter that allows you to extract data and synthesize what's going on and have meaningful data here, like what are the count of the stickies and where are those stickies at? We can also extend FigJam with task automation, so we can make everyday tasks faster and easier. Examples include spell check, find and replace, automatically creating a grid of stickies. Now we're going to let Tekeste talk about this plugin, but if you've heard of the spell plugin, now the spell plugin will be available for FigJam. So on the right here, we see the spell plugin in action. I'm not going to share too much because we're going to let Tekeste take care of that. We can also extend using content libraries. So we can import data from other tools and create objects on your board. So in this case, we see an example of a brand fetch plugin, but it's working in FigJam. And we're able to actually grab brands and put them into our jam sessions, as well as put them in as backgrounds of FigJam objects if we want to. We can also use it for customization to select custom colors, fonts, or text styles. If you may have noticed, FigJam is a very minimal color palette. And so maybe as a designer, you're thinking, I want to customize this. I want to take it next level. So we can use plugins to do this. On the right, we see something by Jordan Singer, where we can actually recreate the whole layers panel in Figma in FigJam so that we can actually get more organized. So for all of our very particular designers that love to name their layers, I am not one of them. This is for you. And last, we have custom templating. So we can create custom browsable template libraries that are specific to your company and brand and private to your organization or team. In this example, we can see Iconify. We're actually able to bring in different assets into our jam sessions. Now, these are just icons here, but we can think about this and extend it a lot further. So we could bring in brand library assets if we'd like to, or any sort of things that we'd like to put into FigJam and empower it with this plugin. Okay, so if you all are interested and you want to get started, we've actually added more plugin samples to our GitHub page. And Vanessa is going to be sharing a link of this into the chat, but we've actually pushed a lot of new updates to our GitHub repo. So we can see here all of these different plugin samples here. Come in, follow the README here, duplicate this whole repository or clone it. And then you can get started with learning how to use these and actually propel yourself to create your own first plugin. So currently where we're at with FigJam plugins, we have 16 FigJam plugins. They're all published, but they're waiting for our launch date. We also have 71 FigJam plugins in development, and hopefully after this live stream and all of you hear this, we're able to have so many more. We're just getting started with this. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with our demos, which is the best part of this live stream. And I want to first bring up Tekeste, who's our developer at Spell Design, who created the plugin Spell. Hey, Tekeste.
Hey, Rogie. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're so happy to have you on and so happy for all your involvement in the plugins private beta. I do have one question for you, Tekeste.
Oh,
don't
gosh.
worry, it's not the marsupial question.
Okay, what is it?
I did say in practice that I might ask Tekeste what his favorite marsupial is, but I'm not sure he liked that. So
I have not been stressing about this question at all, so go ahead.
Okay. So I'm curious about two things. So what did you want to be when you were a kid, Tekeste?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I really wanted to be a lawyer because I used to read a lot of John Grisham novels, and I'm glad I'm not a lawyer. They are not very popular, apparently. But yeah, I really wanted to be a lawyer.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, and then follow-up question. What do you want to be now?
Oh, actually, like, I love what I do now. I'm a huge nerd and enjoy everything that I do. So I do 9 to 5 as a developer, but hopefully in a couple of years, I want to be able, to just build Figma and FigJam plugins for a living. So that's a dream.
I absolutely love that. And I have loved all your experiments, seeing your stuff on Twitter. I recently started following Tekeste, and he's sharing all kinds of experiments and things that he's doing, like as he's doing them. So Tekeste, I'm going to give you the floor. I can't wait to see your demo.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone can see my FigJam board. Okay, cool. So just to quickly say like why I build plugins, I'm a developer, and usually the workflow is a designer gives you a design and you build that out. But my hope with building plugins that I will be able to contribute back to the design process right before it even started and just be part of that work. At least like that's the grown-up answer. But the real answer is I'm just a nerd and I love doing side projects with React and TypeScript, and the Figma plugin API, team. They did such a great job making that API approachable, and it's just a joy to work with. So thank you for that. I'm gonna be demoing my spell checker plugin. It used to work for Figma. Now that FigJam also opened up the plugin, I was able to port it very quickly. And it didn't take me that long. I actually built a fun landing page for it. So if you guys want to check it out, it's spell with 3 Ls.design. So let's see. Let me open it up. So the plugin, as soon as you open it, it starts, you know, checking your file for typos. So it's actually telling me like my brand name is a typo. So what I can easily do is I can tell it, hey, this is actually not a typo, and just add it to dictionary and it will ignore it. You can spell check your sticky notes. I learned that a lot of designers are dyslexic, and you know, having typos and grammatical errors is kind of embarrassing. So when this plugin API, I think, launched in 2019, I was like, maybe I can build a spell checker and help some people with it. So I can do this and it gets fixed, you know, it capitalized it. It doesn't just do, you know, spelling error, it also does grammar also. So you can also spell check, you know, your shapes with text and everything. So I'm just fixing that. You can also spell check these connectors or the labels on them. This is pretty cool, like that. And then once it's done, lets you know everything looks good. As you can see, I have some bugs here. There are bugs, obviously demo time, but I will have to fix that. Okay, so this was FigJam plugin. I also have a nice demo for you, which is a widget. So this is widget, I'm just calling it notes. So this is how it's gonna look like. Let's bring it up here. Sorry. Okay, so this is the notes widget. So it looks like, you know, the iOS notes app widget, and you can click on it, and then I can say, you know, hello world. So this is actually a full-blown markdown editor. So you can do any kind of formatting you want with it, and it gets saved. And this photo right here, actually Figma lets you access the current user interacting with the plugin, which is pretty cool. So this is me interacting with the plugin. So it shows up my photo. And let's say I wanted to attach, you know, a note to this guy. So I can select it, and then I hit this, and let's say I can say like, I love the colors here or whatever, right? And then it adds this little dot that matches the dominant color on this guy. So let's say this was like all over the place and your note is here and you don't know what this note is about. So you can just click on it and it will take you to that note or to that layer. So you can keep adding a bunch of them. So let me just do that. At some point, it will hide some of them because it's gonna get really, really long. So what you can do is you can click on show all notes, and you know, this is literally an app inside FigJam. I'm just like blown away also by how it was easy, you know, to build this. You can just copy paste and like mess with this copy and, you know, have your own notes. Okay, so I'm hoping we will be able to animate this thing, so it will be like a smooth transition, but still it's very good. Like it's just like a first. Okay, so I didn't miss anything about notes, right? So this will be like helpful if your team works in a remote setting and like you do async, like you don't do that much meetings. Someone can come in and just leave you a bunch of detailed note on here without, you know, cluttering your FigJam board. All right, let's see what I have next. Oh yeah, this one is going to be rich embeds inside FigJam. Let's say like you are brainstorming and you want to create a vision board, right? So what you do is, you know, gather inspiration from all over the place. You can easily add images to FigJam, but what you can also add now, thanks to widgets, is like very rich embeds. So for example, I'm going to take this off here. I will be able to insert a YouTube video. So I can just click on this guy and let me copy the link. And if I do this, it will be shown here. So every, you know, you can add a bunch of this. Like I said, widgets are copy pastable, so you can add a bunch of them. So you don't have to leave, you know, FigJam. That's our goal here, to make it stay in FigJam as much as possible. So I'm not gonna hit play because it's gonna mess with the audio, but you can watch your YouTube video just right there. This will be easily extendable to any kind of sources. I'm hoping to get it to work, with Twitter, Instagram, or whatever types of content that you might be interested in. Hopefully I didn't go over 5 minutes, Rogie. Thank you. That was it for me.
Well, whatever it was, if it was 6 minutes, it was 6 minutes well worth it. I can't believe you were able to build those widgets as quickly as you did. I saw one of your tweets about it. These are the tweets I'm talking about. And so Tekeste, awesome job. Thank you for sharing your creations with us. They're looking so cool.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Tekeste. Now we're gonna transition over to Daniel, who, as I said, is a product design manager at Discord. So he's gonna share what he's been working on. But Daniel, before you get started, I have some questions for you. Hopefully not too difficult.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so first question. What was the first thing you ever made with code?
First thing I ever made with code. I think I'm gonna like really date myself here, but the first programming class I had was in, I think, like my freshman year of high school, but it was all in Flash and like ActionScript. So it was like an interactive website when websites were built in Dreamweaver and, were horrible, but also amazing. I think maybe besides that, MySpace. I feel like MySpace was like a huge thing for millennials to like get, like customize your own webpage and get to show off themes and stuff. I played in a lot of bands, so making like bands themes on MySpace was kind of my jam. But yeah, I think that's the earliest stuff I made, and those were kind of at the same time. So maybe a tie.
Yeah. Well, if you're dating yourself, then I'm dating myself because the first thing I ever made was also MySpace profile. So
awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then last question. What is your most used emoji?
Oh, that's a good one. I think when you work at Discord, your emoji game gets like leveled up like 10,000 times what it would be normally. So like my emoji game and like texts were terrible, but we have so many good ones. There's one of me that we use in the design server. That's just me doing this with 2 finger guns. I use that one pretty often as like a quick response to people because it always cracks them up. But we have a lot of blobs. One of our other designers named Karen, she does a lot of illustration on the side. So she's made a lot of like Pikachu blobs that we use like basically everywhere. So I think it's probably some of the Pikachu blobs is probably the most common one I use.
Nice. I love a good blob. That's probably mine. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to turn over to you to show us what you've been building.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah, so can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think I'm sharing the wrong screen actually. Give me 1 second. Cool. Awesome. Yes. So hi, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm a design manager at Discord. I've been working on some plugins, really just some quality of life stuff to explore like essentially how to make my life as a design manager easier and kind of improve everyone's lives on the team when they're working on FigJam with me. I want to call out to make sure to follow our Figma community page. I'm not the only one who published this stuff there. We have an amazing designer named Selena, our design systems guy, Brian, some of our engineers, they're all starting to publish stuff to our community page. We're big believers in open source stuff, so please check that out and give it a follow. And I will also mention that everything I show off today will be also open source. So if you want to kind of poke around in some code and try to learn from yourself, I highly encourage it. You can also always DM me on Twitter. I'm happy to help you there. But yeah, the first thing I built for FigJam was this plugin called create a sticky from text. And kind of the way this was inspired was now that I'm a manager, I find myself in FigJam more than Figma, which is both great and also a little sad. But I facilitate a lot of brainstorms, a lot of meetings, and FigJam has made it easy for all of us to kind of jump in to one space together. The one thing I've noticed more and more is a real problem I had was I would join meetings and have a lot of notes that we kind of want to precede the meeting with. And we also use Notion a lot. And one thing I like about that product is like I'm able to convert different like blocks of things into different things. So I thought like, oh, it'd be really useful to have like an option to convert some of these notes into sticky notes for me. So it has, it's called Create Sticky from Text. It's free. All it does is basically converts either paragraphs into individual sticky notes, which we then can convert and organize as we want. And the way this works is it loops through all the different lines. And if there's punctuation or line breaks, it kind of determines what would make the most sense for a sticky note. But this is super helpful because, you know, a PM might send me a huge block of text. And I'm like, oh man, normally I'd have to copy paste each one or rewrite them, which takes a lot of time. And I'm a big believer in work smarter, not harder. And so I figured, why not make a little quality of life plugin for this? And so I'll show you a couple of examples. Like I said, it will automatically convert these things into different sticky notes for you, which makes it a nice time saver. Another thing I noticed is like when I'm in FigJam a lot, you might end up in a meeting where people leave text like nodes all over the place because they're like using it for the first time. They're not sure how to make sticky notes. And so I also made an option to create stickies from text layers. So if you have like text layers all over the place, you can select them all, convert them. Super easy, nice and lightweight. But like I said, this is going to be open source. It's kind of just a quality of life thing. Tekeste already showed off all of his way cooler plugins, but honestly, it's a really smart little fun utility. That's a good place to jump off from. The next one I want to demo is actually more of like a theoretical plugin. I call it Summarize Stickies. So as I been in so many more of these meetings, I found myself like if we have like a really big brainstorm, there's often times where we need to like synthesize through dozens and dozens of sticky notes. And like, that's a really important step of the meeting. But I thought, you know, is it even possible for us to kind of automate this with UI? And so I started exploring a plugin with some mixed results, but I think that actually kind of makes it more interesting. But the way it works is I can select a bunch of plugins. I can click this button to summarize them. And what it'll do is, let's see if this actually works. Sorry if there's bugs. What it'll do is it'll kind of send this the sticky note content to a third-party service. It's using an open source AI summarization, like machine learning library. And what it'll do is it'll return a summary of those different sticky notes back to you. It'll basically tell you like how many it's summarized and a quick summary of each one. As you can see, it only kind of grabbed the top level ideas here and returned it. But I think the cool thing about this is there's a lot of potential in like someone smarter than me taking this and training it either for your own like team's personal language to understand it better, or utilizing a lot of the other really cool AI and summarization types of libraries that might end up running, like having slightly better results here. But I'm really inspired by a lot of the stuff that Jordan Singer does with AI and design tools, and like trying to marry those things together and seeing like what's possible for us going forward. And so, yeah, this one's called Summarize. I'm not going to publish it, but I will release this open source. I'm also working on a blog post to kind of talk about like why this is so difficult and a lot of the things I learned as I was building it. But yeah, that's it for me in terms of demos.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. That was so amazing to see. And like Rogie said, it's great that you shared a simple plugin that uses AI.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next up, we have Mirko. I've got a few questions for you, principal designer.
Oh.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm pretty great.
Awesome. Okay. So I got a few questions for you. This is a burning question for me as well, but when your day job is all done, like what's your favorite thing to do as a creator?
That's kind of like an easy answer for me because it's just experimenting with Figma and seeing how much I can extend the tool and play a lot with those different disciplines. You know, 3D, you mentioned some of them, so it's always great to find and see how I can improve my work through experimentation. So that's definitely my favorite activity as a creator.
And it shows, Mirko. It shows. It's been really cool watching all the things you've dabbled in. Another follow-up question here. There's no wrong answer here, but what's the most fascinating space for you in design? I know there's a lot going on with NFTs, so much going on with FigJam, plugins and widgets, and more. What's the most fascinating space for you to
That's a good thing because, I'm a pretty old school guy. I came from a very traditional design background. And for me, it's always fascinating to look back sometimes and see the amazing work that past generation of designers have done and how that work can be repurposed through our dailies. Because right now I feel like, design is being very cyclical and things are going back again. We see a lot of new graphic design, new artists like going around with MTF, all the technologies. And so it's just amazing to look back and see what happened next. So that's where I'm most fascinated with.
I love that. I'd love to talk to you more about that later. Well, I'm not going to cut into your time, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Mirko. Go for it.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And well, I'm going to basically spend this 5 minutes talking about the awesomeness about, FigJam. I was able to test the FigJam API. And by the way, hi again, this is Mirko, principal designer at Piper Tiger. And this is basically a plugin that came from one of our needs where, as an agency, we work a lot with sitemaps and visual sitemaps, and not about the structure, just not about the structural elements. We also like to make them a little pretty or branded, depending on the client. The problem is that this process is very, very slow. You have to do it by hand, and other external tools aren't like they weren't the best fit for us. So, and weirdly we just discovered that the fastest way for us in order to build a sitemap and be productive in that sense was also to have them using like simple text lists. So the idea, since FigJam has a lot of nice features and now there are plugins, I just wanted to merge it. So this is kind of like a little process before the demo. And the idea will be, me trying to figure out how to draw a diagram, which apparently turns out to be extremely complex in that sense. There is a lot of maths, but you can do a lot. And after a couple of searching and stuff, I was able to find a nice implementation with the API. And thanks to the Figma and FigJam magic, I was basically able to build visual sitemap. Visual sitemap is basically a combination of what we saw earlier. And right now, I'm just gonna launch the plugin like that, visual sitemap. This is basically a simple editor where you have like the editor, the text editor experience, but the speed of like generating something real fast. And the idea here will be that you will pass or write your sitemap or whatever child you want to write into the editor. Right now, it has some like placeholder data. And as soon as you hit create, FigJam will do all the work for you, all the placing, the connections, and all those different stuff. The cool thing is that you can actually automate this and maybe apply some sort of customization. Right now, the plugin support different layouts. For example, if you want to go horizontal, you can do it. Or if you want to change maybe the arrow style, yeah, you can do that as well. And the magic here is that FigJam does all the big manual work for you, and then I can just focus on the customization. And again, depending on if you're a designer or maybe like a non-designer, you could just simply stay in FigJam or maybe import your graph into Figma and create all of those nice and visually beautiful customizations. So this is definitely a game-changing thing for us because now we can merge the two options all together and do not lose on quality or time. The cool thing about the plugin is that it's very well optimized. FigJam work great. So I showed that to Roger in the past, but basically you can pass any sort of like data and create and generate like giant graph on the go, all scalable, all editable. And this is basically the FigJam magic about this plugin. Excited about widgets. I will probably experiment with this, but yeah, this is it for the plugin.
First of all, this is awesome, and I love how you still utilize some of FigJam's built-in customizability. I do love that we've got widgets, we've got AI-driven stuff, and now you blew our minds with the algorithm. I think Steve Ruiz says he wants your algorithm now, Mirko, so maybe you can pass that on over. Awesome. This is so cool.
Cool. Thank you, Mirko. All right. And now we're going to hear from Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, everyone.
Cool. So as we said earlier, Alex is a product designer. He's going to walk us through what he's been building. But of course, before we dive in, I have a couple questions for you, Alex. All right, first question. What was the first thing you ever designed?
Oh, that's a tough one. Remember these days we were using all these old Nokia phones? So I think the first thing I designed was the icon pack for Nokia. People were using themes to customize the interface, but I created the firmware patch to actually update all of the icons throughout the whole system.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and last question here. If you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, for sure, I think pistachio ice cream. That's my favorite. Yeah.
That does sound good. All right.
But I mean, there are many different foods I would try, but like, pistachio ice cream is the best.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, I'll let you take it over now and walk us through what you've been working on.
Yeah. So the first thing I built for FigJam was actually the plugin that counts the stamps in a file. Because usually when you ideate or brainstorm in FigJam, you can create hundreds or maybe even thousands of ideas. And if you use stamps to actually evaluate which ideas are the best ones, you can spend, I don't know, infinite amount of time just trying to understand what idea is the best, or sometimes, or maybe wait, I don't know, just visually estimate which idea is the best, and then all of your ideas are scattered across the file, and you spend lots of time trying to navigate around the file. So I built a plugin that just counts the stamps. It's called Stamp Counter. And here you see it found every stamp in the file. And let's see that I, for example, usually use heart stamp to just stamp the idea I really like. So I just tap on the heart and see all of the notes that are stamped with this icon. If I click on this object, I can jump to the sticky, to this one, and pretty much if you use different stamps for different kinds of votes on your stickies or on your ideas, you can easily do this without spending too much time. The second one was the templates plugin that allows you to quickly browse some files from the community and actually plug them and import into your file, like this icebreaker. And you can do this pretty much with any file. So far I have only 3 of them, but in the future, I think you can import any number of files you like, or even create your own templates. And also, one thing I've built is the widget. So for example, I'm doing a plugin demo and I can track how much time I spent demoing my plugins. You can see I can start the timer and I can stop it, and like 4 seconds, not bad. And I create as many of these time trackers as I want. Yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. That was so great to see. I'm so excited to see that you've already dived into the widget API. Very cool.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. If you can design something in Figma, it's so easy to actually bring it and turn it into a widget, because you use pretty much the same objects. You can just pass all the parameters and boom, your designs are essentially a widget now.
Awesome. All right, cool. So now it's a perfect segue. And we are going to talk a little bit more about widgets. Roger, should I share my screen?
That would be great.
Okay, here we go. All right, so diving more into widgets. So widgets are best for boosting collaboration with everyone on your team in a file, because the way to think about widgets are like any other sort of object that lives on the canvas. So like sticky notes, shapes of text, connectors, all of these native FigJam objects that live on the canvas that you can interact with, you can copy, you can paste, drag them around, create groups. That's exactly how widgets work too, except widgets are created by you instead of the FigJam team. So you can customize to your heart's content. Some very quick examples are voting, polls, notepads, even games, as you saw from some of the examples that we've seen. They really can be sort of fully functioning apps that really live on the FigJam canvas, which is super exciting. And so now diving into a few types of widgets that we've been playing around with and that we think are going to be really exciting based on the customers we've been talking to who use FigJam. So the first is facilitation widgets, and widgets that really drive facilitation. So you can think of these as voting counters or polls or even like card scales. These sort of make it easier to engage everyone in a group setting and make sure everyone's voice is equally heard in a FigJam file. Another example is games and play. We're really excited for this use case for widgets and like what it opens up. So things like cards, dice, spinners, things like tic-tac-toe, like you can see here. And because widgets live on the canvas, they are multiplayer aware, right? So they, like, as you can see in this example, I'm playing a game with Rogie. We're going back and forth. You can see whose turn it is. And all of this is sort of like live on the canvas. And we're all sort of seeing and interacting with the same thing. We think games are really exciting and really important because we think that while they're fun, you can be your most productive when you're feeling engaged and creative and connected. And the next one is interactive diagrams. So we think that diagramming widgets can help speed up diagramming by allowing you to directly click on the canvas to add branches to things like mind maps and org charts. You can even pull in data. Maybe you have org chart data and via like an external source or like internal API or something like that. You can pull that in as you're sort of clicking directly on the widget to add these sort of like branches and connections to a chart. And then note taking. So we actually saw a few examples of these types of widgets earlier. So again, because widgets sort of live on the canvas, everything on a widget can be viewed by everyone. So you can create note taking widgets. So you can add notes that everyone can contribute to and see as you're jamming together in a FigJam file. And then the last one here is data visualization. So this one is super exciting. So, let's say that you have a bunch of your user research data in like a Google Sheet or an Airtable or some external source. You can pull that in and then create an interactive sort of chart directly on the canvas that everyone can sort of see, engage with, interact with. You can even sort of create a chart based on the voting session or the brainstorm you just had. So let's say that you had a brainstorm in FigJam, you voted on a bunch of stuff and you want to visualize that data via a chart, right? So you can use sort of data visualization and charting widgets to do exactly that.